This is Surfer of Life and I am Tommy. Today I'm sitting here with Aaro Helander, who is no stranger anymore. He's been here before once and now he's back in the real business here at Surfer of Life. We have very interesting topics today. We're gonna discuss about the self-blockages and image changes, for example. Aaro, welcome back to Surfer of Life.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here again, and thanks for inviting me.
What have you been up to lately?
Well, a lot of stuff. Like, I'm in a situation in my life right now when it feels like you kind of just meet the right people at the right moments, and just different various aspects of my life are just like rolling together, and interesting stuff coming up like weekly. Like, I have no idea who I'm gonna meet next week, what's gonna happen, and it's very interesting and it's good.
Good times, interesting
good
times, meeting new people, developing new methods, for example.
Yeah, and like on a weekly basis, I feel like I'm getting like in more in touch with who I really am, and kind of getting the things that I know I can give the world and help people to move forward. And now I'm in a situation where I feel like I really can help people on the new level with my coaching and this kind of stuff. So it feels very empowering. And when you feel empowered, it kind of feeds the flame. So it's easier to be who you are, easier to do what you really want to do. And everything's kind of very, very clear at the moment.
It's very good to have you here, because there's a lot of things going on around well-being at the moment. It's a huge topic, and there's a lot of people suffer from self-image limitations, for example, and other issues. And there has been a lot of mental issues around in the topics, and I think like the suicide rates are really high at the moment in the Western countries, and people are not feeling well even though they should be.
Yeah,
it's very good to have you here. We have so good topics today. But first of all, I want to ask you about one thing I saw in the Instagram. I saw you like this power stretching thing doing for one gymnastic. What was that all about?
She's one of my personal training clients, circus acrobatics girl, very, very talented and a hard worker, and it was just like a dynamic power stretch. So it's pretty hard to visualize without not seeing the video, but it was just, she's trying to get her middle split. So when, example, during a handstand, it's very hard. Even if you're flexible, you can get splits, legs front or the middle split. It's very hard during a handstand to control, have like the strength to pull your legs apart and keep them controlled all the time. So we kind of use this bit of a advanced technique to develop active strength into a range of motion by applying resistance. So I was pressing her legs down to a split, and then she was trying to lift them up back together, and I was pressing against her, and then we would go down again. She's trying to resist the force I'm applying, and it kind of activates the whole musculature on a very different level than just doing a static stretch where you just go to a position using gravity or the floor to utilize your pre-existing mobility. So it's a very like interesting technique, all this kind of advanced dynamic stretches to get to the next level.
Okay, how big part is the mental preparation for that? It looked kind of heavy.
Yeah, it looked. Yeah. Because I weighed like almost 100 kilos, and I was really like leaning on her, and she still had the strength to move her legs under my body weight. So it looks kind of brutal, but mentally, that's not maybe so difficult, because the environment is safe. She knows what we're doing, why we're doing it. But if I would try that on you, it wouldn't look so pretty, and we would probably need some kind of mental preparation for like a month to get used to the idea, but
yeah, I believe so.
yeah, let's not try that.
Let's not try that. But let's hit the business here and start talking about the issues that we are here for.
Yeah.
We start about self-image limitations. Tell me about self-image limitation. What does it mean, actually?
Well, first, let's define maybe what self-image means. It might be quite a clear concept, but as humans, we are, I would say, capable of a multi-dimensional self-image, which means that, on the other hand, we can be, in some areas of our life, we can be very confident, but then lacking confidence in some different areas. So, for example, humans are very habitual creatures. We like to hang out with people we know. We like to hang out with environments that we're used to and that we feel safe. But usually it's very, very common that our self-image is tied to specific locations, specific circumstances. And when we are removed from those circumstances, we feel it as almost like a physical threat to our self. And that kind of limits the places we can go, the mental in our mind, how we can see ourselves. For example, many people identify with niceness, which can be very in many circumstances a bad thing. For example, when you think about myself, when I was a teenager, I had this mental self-image that I'm a good guy. I'm a nice guy. I'm not like those assholes. I'm good. I'm nice. And then that would actually tied me to it tied my performance to a certain level. For example, I was thinking just too much about what others think. Do others perceive me as a good guy? So I was constantly doing this, what is called social pinging, for example, a term that comes from IT and networks. When you have a network, the network pings kind of tries to receive some kind of indication that is someone receiving this signal, is the network working? So it's kind of constant communication, and that's what we humans do. We kind of ping, see if you're there. What do you think about me? Is what I'm doing right now? Are you approving it? Are you perceiving me as I want you to perceive me? And then we kind of waste this huge amount of energy just to concentrating on what others think about us. And that can be very, very limiting factor, because obviously, and when we're young, we might not actually know who we really truly are or what we are meant to be. And when we spend years identifying with some sort of image about ourselves, then we kind of get stuck to it. And it's really hard to, when we think about success, it's really hard to break through of those plateaus, because we've identified with something that doesn't help us to get where we would really deep inside want to go. And then we have these defense mechanisms like becoming a victim, blaming the world, that we think that the world should be different, people should be different, I'm the victim, the world should change, I'm good, this is bad, instead of taking responsibility and realizing that's when we think about learning in general. Learning means that your behavior changes somehow. And to change your behavior, you have to momentarily become someone that you are not. And people always, for example, if I have a client who has a problem XYZ, and they tell me that these problems, this is what I would like to achieve, and then I'll listen to her and she says, that's okay, what do I need to do? And I tell her, okay, if you want to go here, these are the steps you need to take. And then they're like, oh, but that's not me. That's not me. And I'm like, yeah, that's the whole point. To become something you are not requires you to detach yourself from the self-image you have created and think a bit wider. Go even deeper inside and find those things that who you really are, what you really want to become. and what you really enjoy. And you simply can't do that if you let society, your family, your friends define who you are.
How have you yourself been able to kind of like get yourself out of that mentality and mindset that this is really you? Like you said, you thought you are the nice guy and it was limiting you. What was the first step for you?
Well, the first step was actually when I got out of my military service, and then I moved from my hometown Kouvola to Helsinki. And then I started working at a warehouse, and it was very like no brains involved activity, just moving around, walking the warehouse, picking up stuff. And then I realized that, okay, so this doesn't require any mental effort or social. I don't have to be social with anyone. So I was just starting to listen to audiobooks and different kind of podcasts and so on. And then I kind of figured out these all different interesting topics that, okay, this sounds interesting. I just started listening and taking like new information in, new ideas in. And then I kind of was confronted with many new concepts which were like in conflict with my current self-image. For example, the topic of being nice versus being good, and how do those two things link to each other. So we're talking about months and years of listening, hearing new ideas like, okay, you don't have to be nice, you don't have to be apologizing, you don't have to care about what other people think in order to be quote unquote good person. And then it took like my average kind of time span to hear an idea and integrate it into your personality is about 1 year of active learning and listening and applying. So it's a slow process. Humans don't usually take in new ideas that conflict with their current ideas very fast.
Do you think that people live in too fast pace, that they don't actually give themselves time? You said 1 year goal, and now it seems like people try to achieve things fast. We are kind of moving forward very, very fast. What's your opinion? Does people give themselves enough time to think these issues?
Well, most often not. And it's obvious, like even if we talk about very simple goals, and again, quote unquote simple goals like losing weight, which can take time because there can be many issues limiting it, many like emotional, behavioral issues, which take a certain amount of time to overcome. And gaining muscle, for example, everyone who's been going for gym for a long time knows that it's a slow process, and the key element is to learn to enjoy the process and detach yourself somewhat from the outcome. And of course, you always need a vision to power your like everyday life, like this is where I'm going. But meanwhile, you have to like just detach yourself from that outcome and just enjoying the process and knowing that, okay, tomorrow I'm going to be 1% better than I was yesterday, and kind of integrating that process into your own psyche in a very deep level. And people are and this comes back to the being tied to a certain self-image, that people often, I feel like they perceive that if some goal requires some part of their internal behavior to change, then they perceive that, okay, that's not what I need. That's not what I want. So there's kind of an ego gap. So our ego limits ourselves from even thinking that's okay. That would be cool. I would want to lose weight. I would want to be muscular, but that's not who I am. These steps are not what I want to do. So they kind of just leave it blank, don't even think about it, and then they become angry because they don't just immediately gain muscle or lose fat when they do a week of dieting and training. And it's kind of a multifactorial issue.
Talking about ego, is ego good or bad?
Well, in a sense, it's good. Like, I like to think that every part of yourself, we think that let's divide like a human being into two parts. There's this kind of old you and ego, these a set of things that define who you are. And they try to protect you. They have good intentions, like your ego, who wants not to go to the unfamiliar territory, wants to protect you from harm. And then on the other hand, we have this kind of a deeper you who wants to go forward, who wants to progress, to gain success, to be loved, and so on. And that part of you wants you to go outside and explore. And these two parts kind of seem to be in conflict because they are going in opposite directions. But I think it's important to realize that every part of you, they have good intentions. So they just both want to protect you in some way. So we often like create this gap between them. That's I can never do that because I'm so lazy. I'm so this and this. And then we forget that, okay, if these both guys who make up me are actually trying to make it the best outcome for me, why not combine them, accept the ego that's, okay, I'm a bit of a like hard-headed bastard, and just accept it and be able to laugh at it. And then when you kind of accept everything, then you can move beyond and see, okay, let's see what I can do with these pieces.
Success is a strong word, and this is my opinion, but at least occasionally I think success, the word itself, seems a bit of like a devil.
Yeah.
What's your opinion about the word success?
Well, it does, and it's very much comes down to pure semantics, just how the word success rings. That in Finland especially, I think we kind of hate success because the mental image is this aggressive salesman wanting to make money at all costs, like essentially robbing old ladies by selling them shit that they don't need and so on. But if we think about success, like, I think the good definition is that success is that thing which brings you the feeling of fulfillment. And that is something you cannot force, and it might not be the obvious things like getting rich, gaining muscle, losing fats, becoming something like this. All of those things can be forced. Like, you can force yourself to work hard to gain money, but I think that usually you realize when you have gained this kind of success, you realize that it didn't make me happy. Like, we know getting money doesn't make you happy. It's just like an external outcome, and you're still the same old you who has these all problems on emotional levels and so on. But when we think about fulfillment, for example, like, let's think about my vision. My vision is to be in a position where I am able to communicate with people and help people on the very deepest levels, talking about things I really enjoy talking about, and having them like push their barriers, gain success and fulfillment in their life. That kind of success cannot be forced, and it cannot be just like extrapolated into these things: being rich, being healthy, being physically fit. And there's a huge distinction that success can be very different things for different people. So it doesn't mean that you have to be financially very, very secure or physically very extremely fit or something like that. It can vary hugely between people. And when talking about success, it's always important to realize, okay, this is what it means to me, that it's comparable to someone else's success on the level of fulfillment it brings you, but not on the level of these external things that come with the success.
Tell me about functional fixation. What does that really mean?
Well, functional fixation is a kind of blockage to creativity. So the term means in my view, that people are we form these mental images of how things should be, how things are supposed to be used. For example, in school, functional fixation would be, I need to get good grades, please my teachers, please my parents. This is the function of me being in school. Instead of it being like, how can I get the most out of this system so that it actually helps me to get the things I really want to get. And it's a huge topic, actually. It comes down to very, like, if we think about dieting, losing weight, people are very inflexible with food, like what food choices they make, because they think this is food, this is how it should be eaten, and then they think, oh, I had this chicken and broccoli, I can't stand it anymore, but this is what I should be doing, instead of thinking, okay, how can I have this kind of hunger? I feel like I need something else. What could I make something out of these healthy elements that actually fulfills this need of mine, to this craving of something maybe sweet or something. And people are just they just are blind to the huge amount of options at every situation. Like, how can I use this to overcome this situation? Like, how can I use this watch to like kill you? Like, how can I use this as a weapon? And in various courses, we have this, what I've seen, this kind of exercises when you have an object like this cup here, and you have to think about, for what purposes could I use this cup to receive some outcome? And guys always first come up with, okay, I can use it as a weapon. This is like the very natural thing for guys to learn, and usually women come up with very different set of ideas. And it's a good exercise for creativity to just think about every situation. What could I do here? What could I do? What could I do with that fireplace? And kind of just widen your perspective on everything. And then you kind of realize that, okay, and I can always bend the rules of reality to gain some advantage that I want, like bend the rules in the school system, like concretely screw the system. Like that was what I was doing, like in Aaro Helander when I was studying my IT bachelor's degree. So I just found ways to make the school serve me, not trying to go with the regular. My purpose is to get good grades, get a good job, and die. So just kind of widening everything you got, and always seeking like what's the optimal thing to do in this situation. But it's a huge topic. But people are very inflexible, and that's why they kind of want coaches to solve problems for them, because they don't want to or are incapable of seeing bigger picture in various situations. And it takes time, of course, naturally.
Is this part of going out of the autopilot mode? Yeah,
you could say that. And when talking about the autopilot, it's very important. Like the first realization people usually have when they start some kind of self-development is realizing that, okay, most of the time I am on autopilot. I'm like just running through a programming that was set by the culture I live in, the society I live in, the expectations of my family, the expectations of my friend, which all created your self-image, and your self-image is now running on autopilot, and you're just doing mostly the same things every day, going through the same thoughts, and never even looking outside, like, is this what I'm doing now really good for me and taking me where I want to go?
How do we get stuck here in this self-image that we are carrying and we can't get really out of it? What is creating it?
Well, it's mostly, if you think about it purely like physiological level, that's how our brain works. Certain neural connections get reinforced over time. When the same neural impulse is being sent for years and years and years, then it's kind of a river that flows in one direction, and the river gets deeper, and then it's the longer it takes, the harder it's to change the river's path, because it's been going the same direction for so long. So that's kind of what happens to us as people. As we talk about, we create our identity meaning out of these things that have defined who we are for so long. For example, your mom always said that you're such a lazy ass, Aaro. There's no hope for you. Like, you're gonna die alone and and things like that. And then when it happens for years and years, then it's, even though I like on an intellectual level, I would know that that's not maybe true. It's still on an emotional level. There's some voice in my head telling me in different situations that I'm lazy. I can't do this. Instead of forcefully trying to accept that, okay, this is an autopilot reaction. This is not who I am. This is a machine, actually. My brain as a machine thinking for me and reinforcing it day by day. And a lot of negative self-talk is just based on what we have heard during our life, on the accidents and bad things that have happened to us and how people around us and close to us reacted to it. And then we kind of just don't think for ourselves most of the time.
I was listening to the audiobook from Mo Gadvat, Solve for Happy, and he's talking a lot about the inner voice we have and the guy or whatever you call it, and we think it's us, but it's not really who I am who is talking.
Yeah.
What's your opinion?
Yeah, I totally agree that, as we talked about it, we are very capable of a multi-dimensional self-image that is constructed of various different parts. And some of those parts might be like totally not us, but it's been there for so long that we have taken it as an part of our identity. And it can be very hard to make people even actually realize that this kind of inner voice, it's not who we are, like the small negative beliefs that keep popping in our head when we face new situations, when things go wrong. And this, for example, the whole concept of failure, like someone can have a very deep emotional understanding that I am a failure because something happened in their childhood where the emotional experience was so strong that their family was that you're a failure, you're bad, and then it kind of got stuck there. And now in adult life, when something happens, it kind of pops up. I'm a failure. I can't do that. And realizing that this is something that it takes time to overcome it, but if you start today, it will eventually, you can change the path of the river if you just stick to it and be patient.
Can you give me any examples for some kind of training to help you to get out of that self-image?
Well, it can be like, let's say, very like physical thing. And that's why physical training in various forms can be very powerful in changing our behavior and our emotional states. For example, it's very common in movement classes. We have this exercise where you have to kind of, if we were standing here, I would start swinging with my arm, and then you have to do this kind of matrix style dodging and just move a full range of motion to dodge the swings that I'm coming at you. And there was this one woman who was apparently very, very kind of nice and quiet and timid by nature. And she was kind of doing the swings like this. And I tried to tell her that you need to do it like forcefully, like if you were attacking your partner. And she said, but I can't do that. I don't want to attack her. And I was like, come on, this is an exercise. It's a safe environment. Like, you're supposed to, like, think about this as a movie. You are an actor. Try to act like you are attacking her. But she just couldn't do it because her self-image was that I'm not this kind of person. I'm not aggressive. So it kind of limited the training she was doing. And apparently if she cannot train with full intention, like this is a actually a battle where I'm have to use everything I've got, then she's not going to get much out of the training. But by eventually getting her comfortable with that idea that, okay, this is just the way it is and it's all right in this context to be aggressive, then when she can do it, the exercise with full intensity, like with full power, then she might realize that, okay, this feels somewhat different. This makes me feel more powerful, and maybe this is who I really am. And then later, maybe she can apply that to different situations. Like if thing comes up when we feel like we need to apologize, we did something wrong, even though we didn't, then we can remember that, okay, maybe this is not the right reaction. This is an autopilot reaction to be apologizing to people around me, to try to get others' approval by apologizing, even if we don't want to. So it's kind of very powerful thing to integrate physical exercise, which is most comparable to battle and war and this kind of things that we don't have nowadays.
Is that the first step, that break the habit once and then you can move forward?
Yeah, and break the habits like in any form, and then apply it to transfer it to another area of your life. So it can be a very powerful tool, and for different people it can like vary. Some people might need first to go through some kind of mental, emotional process to be able to perform a physical process, and for some people it goes the other way around. Like many people start going to gym motivated by very like external pressure. I want to look good, I want to get approval, and then they start exercising, and then at some point they realize that I'm not anymore doing this to get approval. I'm doing it because it makes me feel good. I'm doing it because this is who I am, and then the game kind of switches and flips over. So you realize that's the reasons you were doing it in the first place aren't the real reasons that are driving you now, and that can be a very powerful motivator. So you in a certain way, you move your frame of reference from the external world to yourself. So you're not only trying to please others, but you're just doing things for yourself.
How does culture create our personality?
Well, the one powerful thing is what is called social learning, which is a useful feature for humans, that we learn by looking what others do. So if you go and jump off a cliff and it ends up bad, I don't have to jump off a cliff to know that it's bad. I can just look, okay, there who went, it was bad. I don't have to do that. I learned that, and that's one thing that's kind of makes it very concrete, is that when something bad happens, people are always when an accident happens, people are gathering around to see what happened. It's like pure curiosity to learn, like what went wrong here? How can I avoid this? And that's a good thing, because it makes things fast. It's a lot faster to look at the outside world and see, okay, this is happening. Now I have a lot of information on what to do and what to not do, instead of just trying everything yourself. It would be very slow. So from a survival standpoint, it's very important thing that we can quickly gain information by observing our environments. But in many ways, it turns against us when we kind of get stuck with just looking at what others do to know what we would have to do, instead of moving the frame of reference from the inside. And for example, let's say two people enter a room full of people, and one person has an external frame of reference. So he comes to the room and looks at, okay, who is here? Who is the highest status person in this room? Who should I orient my behavior to? So they're kind of scanning everyone and seeing what's their place in the group. And the other guy comes in and he's more of a leader type with an internal frame of reference. And he comes into the room and says, okay, I'm one of the high status people in this room, and I'm just going to be myself, and I'm going to somewhat orient, of course, myself to others, but the people in this room are not defining my behavior. I'm still going to do the things I do, even though there are other people in this room. And then they usually find that the other people start orienting themselves according to his personality. And that's what people do. People, when in groups, orient themselves to have a leader and followers. And that's a very natural thing to do. And you have to kind of take a moment to think about what is my personality, what do I do when confronted with these kind of situations. Do I look on the inside to see if everyone else is doing the right thing, or do I seek for approval for my behavior from the outside and from other people's reactions?
How should we cope with social media then? It's creating a lot of our image these days.
Yeah. Well, that's a very, very hard, difficult topic, because it kind of depends. And for me, like the work I do is partially tied to social media. Like with you, also, you have to have channels to make your content available to be interesting, and that kind of creates its own problems. But it's at the same time very much like a necessity. But I think at this point, when we think about young people, like in the 7th grade to the high school age, there is this kind of a new wave where people are mostly validating themselves through social media following and likes. So when we were like young people, the cool guys were like smoking and being badass and just being a rebel. And nowadays, the cool guys are the ones who have the most social media followers, who are the most fit. And there's some good in it that the reference has been changing to, like, the fitness is now what young people admire, and being a kind of a healthy lifestyle kind of a type of person. But it's very, as you talk about, the suicide rates are going up, and I think it's very much tied to this social media phenomenon, that we are just moved our frame of reference to the social media. It defines who we are. If you don't have Instagram followers, you're nobody. And we are constantly bombarded with this, like a small dopamine spike. Someone liked me, someone approved my photo. And it's kind of, we're living in a different world mentally all the time. And the physical world becomes less and less important in terms of real relationships, real deep connection with other people. It's just kind of crazy.
I wonder how would people look like nowadays if they would like dress up the way that is good for them.
Yeah.
Not how they look.
Yeah.
Fitness, you said about fitness, and I see these fitness people around a lot. Not here in the precise place, but in the social media and wherever. And I see girls, especially, they have external lashes and they have Botox face and silicone spare parts in their body. You think this is lack of self-image, or is it just a style or a trend nowadays?
Well, it's hard to, like, first of all talk about it without like making someone feel bad. But I think it boils down to certain type of distortion of self-image. Like, we have a lot of this with external flashes or spiders as we call them in their eyes, and Botox, and they tell us that this is who I am, this is who I want to be. But if we ask them, well, if you were the only person on planet Earth, would you still be getting Botox and silicone implants? And then they kind of think that, this is a good question. So we live in a situation where you can actually tell yourself about everything that this is who I want to be, even though you are just going by someone else's expectations. Like, we see these Instagram pages, car babes, where young women try to get attention, think that they're gonna make their career as model launch by going these car shows dressed in practically nothing, and they kind of think that this is who I am, this is what I want to do, and still they are applying themselves to a certain very masculine, patriarchal concept of who a woman is. And they're completely blind to that they're just pleasing other people's needs with what they do. And they are naturally huge deaf to this whole topic. And I'm not like judging anyone who does that, but I think there is something really weird going on at this moment.
Have you been able to change this ideology of people that you are teaching and coaching at the moment?
Well, let's say that I haven't had any like such an extreme end of the range people, but the one thing that first changes, like I had this one female client who works on the beauty business, making people's hairs and nails and so on, and she had never actually been too interested in any physical training, but she had so lot of like shoulder pain and back pain and neck pain that she wanted to start training and knew it was important. And then kind of we started training, and at first she couldn't even hang from a straight bar without having a panic attack, because she was so stuck in her upper body that it actually impaired her like blood flow and nervous system. She started hyperventilating and crying, like water coming out of her eyes when she would have to move to a end of the range of motion. And then we kind of worked through it. She's now able to do a couple of pull-ups and so on. And the process was that she was just starting to feel more powerful. Like she said that when I go to work, I walk differently, I carry myself differently, I speak differently, I have a lot more energy, I feel like I'm more capable. So that physical, very small things, just getting in a basic shape, was very powerful driver of changing her personality to be more who she really inside wanted to be, more powerful, more capable of helping others. And it was, those kind of things are very common. That we see that we get this kind of a small switch in the way they start to perceive themselves. And it's very understandable that if you have pain, and if your basic like posture is something like this, you are going to feel a bit weak, because you have this knowledge that I am physically very fragile. And when you start noticing, okay, I can move, I can probably take on a threat, physical threat, if it comes to it, then it kind of gives you some certain sense of more awareness and more power to your whole personality, just knowing that, okay, I can handle things that I didn't know I could handle.
You work a lot using the physical methods, practicing training physically to get those mental blockages away. What about the other way around? If you have a client that is really, really strong and well, for a guy's masculine, or there are a lot of muscle, but still the self-image is a bit weak. How do you start with that person?
Well, let's say that a very common scenario is that their self-image is very tied to them being muscular and powerful on things that actually don't matter as much as they do for like guys. It's very, very common that they started training because they wanted to get laid, and then they have actually noticed that's even though they are very muscular, very powerful, it still didn't lead them where they wanted to be, and they think that, okay, I just need to get more muscular and more powerful, and then I'm gonna get approval and admiration from women. And they kind of don't realize that maybe women don't perceive these things the same way they do, and there's a certain kind of law in self-development, is that the inner world always comes through. So your motivations are always apparent to most people observing you. So that's what makes them weak, because they know that there's some kind of disconnect between how things should be and how they really are. That can create kind of anger, that the world should be different, women should be different, I am powerful, they should admire me, and why are they not admire me? And in this case, we would want to make the person, this guy, to make a disconnect between this, that your self-image is not tied to you being muscular. It's tied to you being self-confident, not caring too much about what others think. And when they kind of get on this level where they simply stop caring too much, then they usually start noticing that, okay, people are reacting differently to me because it's not so apparent that I'm doing something, all of this stuff to get approval. I'm just being who I am. And that's what women find attractive, what other people find attractive. But it's sometimes hard to get through the ego barrier.
You gotta be really brave to start thinking, but
yeah,
of course you need tools to achieve those goals as well.
Yeah. And people usually, when they think about approaching any of these aspects of life, they want to solve the puzzle on the level they think they need. For example, if I get muscles, this is gonna solve my problems. If I lose weight, then I'm gonna solve my relationship problems. And instead of addressing all the levels, like emotional, also physical, like nutrition, self-image, these kind of stuff. And it can go like very, very deep stuff that we would have to work on first before we can even get closer to the physical results. But people have very strong ideas that this is what I need. I don't need that mental, emotional stuff. Just get me the muscles, and that will solve also those emotional problems. But again, you cannot solve internal problems with external things.
Yes.
So it can be a long process to kind of make that connection, that they realize that, okay, I have to focus on the inner game, so to speak, to solve external problems, and it doesn't work the other way around. Sometimes the external things can be a useful tool. Like if you lose first 5 kilograms of weight, it might help you to be a bit more brave in certain situations, a bit more just like relax more, and then you might be able to receive this deeper kind of stuff about handling emotional problems when you're first being given a little bit of carrot to get you motivated.
So in the end, is it all about mind control?
Well, in a certain sense, yes. And when we talk about mind control, we of course talk about controlling your own mind, not controlling others. Yeah.
Well, this is a very, very important topic we spoke today about, and I'm so happy that you came here to discuss about it, and you have great ideas and examples, and now you're in a good path of helping others to achieve those goals.
Motivating.
And it was great to have you here back at Surfer of Life. And I think this is not going to be the last time we're going to see you here.
Yeah, I hope not.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.